Okay, so today's acting webinar is titled as Towards Safer Mobility, Addressing Violence in Public Transportation. My name is Vasia Madesi, and I'm working as a consultant at Yellow Window, and I'm also part of the acting team. I'm very happy to be here with you on behalf of the acting project team, and thank you very much all for joining us. For those who are less familiar with our work, ACTING is an Horizon 2020 funded project that brings together research and action to foster a just and inclusive Green Deal. So today's session is part of our series of thematic webinars that aim to translate ACTING findings into concrete recommendations and practical tools for policy and practice. So what to expect from today's webinar? So today we turn our attention to mobility systems, which is an essential yet often overlooked space when it comes to gender-based violence. Public transport plays a central role in achieving inclusive, sustainable urban life, but violence, particularly against women, marginalized communities, and transport workers, continues to pose significant barriers. So in this session today, we'll explore key findings from a latest ACCTING Factsheet, and we will highlight both challenges and promising practices that can inform more holistic and preventive approaches to making transport safer for everyone. We will take into account the insights from the UNICEF 7P model, focusing on prevention, protection, and partnerships to tackle gender-based violence in mobility systems. So in order to know a little bit about some practical notes, as you can see, the session is being recorded and will be made available on the ACTING YouTube channel to ensure wider accessibility. And please note that we will only record interventions coming from our speakers in the final video. So the discussion and any questions from coming from you, the audience, will not be recorded. Please also note that we will have a Q&A session towards the end of the webinar. So you are warmly invited to share your questions via the Zoom Q&A box at any time during the session. We'll do our best to address as many as possible. And let me now tell you a few things about the overall flow. First, we will start with a short presentation from my colleague Arne Nies, who will introduce the key insights from the ACTING Factsheet. This will be followed by interventions from our two guest speakers that we thank very much that are here with us today, Sara Ortiz Escalante from Collective Point 6 and Jean Politique, security expert. And a short moderated discussion will follow, and then we will facilitate a live Q&A session. We will, of course, close with some brief reflections and next steps. So without any further ado, I'd like to hand over to Arne Nies, mobility design consultant at Yellow Window and colleague, to get us started with the key findings of the Factsheet. So Arne, the floor is now yours. I will stop sharing my.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Arne Nies, and I am a consultant at Yellow Window Design as well. And I'll be sharing my screen. So, all right, cool. So hi, everybody. So as part of the ACTING project, one specific focus that we worked on together with some of the colleagues that are here is around the topic of safety in public transportation. So we've been looking at the most recent literature on the topic. We've been looking at really good examples of improving safety in public transportation. And so we've consolidated this into a fact sheet where we make some recommendations towards policymakers, towards transport organizations, where I'll go into some of the details right now. So to start with a couple of statistics that sketch the context of what we're talking about today. 3 out of 5 women globally experience sexual harassment on public transportation. So this is quite a significant number. This goes up to even 4 out of 5 for young women. So this is a significant problem that we are trying to tackle here. Similarly, in Belgium, where I'm from, there are up to 15 cases per day of violence, both verbal and physical, towards transportation workers. So train, bus, tram, etc. So that's a pretty large number as well, and something that we are very concerned about. So violence exists in many different forms. It can include non-physical but verbal violence forms like intimidation and harassment, sexual intimidation, harassment, physical violence, and other forms of unwanted behavior on our trains, buses, and trams. So what we have done is we try to look at this problem through an integrated and holistic lens with the help of a framework that was initially devised to tackle a similar problem in academia around gender violence and sexual harassment. This framework is called the 7P framework, and it uses different lenses and angles to come up with a more generalized and holistic way of tackling the problem. So these include looking at prevalence, protection, prevention, provision of services, prosecution, as well as policy and partnerships. And that's what I'll quickly go over in a little bit. So this is a kind of overall overarching framework that we've been using. And we have done this so that policymakers, transportation providers can step out of their very specific view and focus and look at the overall picture of safety and how they can improve safety overall. I'm not going to go into full detail of every single recommendation that we made in the fact sheet. I'll link to the fact sheet in a bit, but I do want to give a couple of examples of, for each of these Ps, what transportation providers and policymakers can do in order to improve safety. So first up is prevalence. Prevalence is all about having an understanding of the extent of the problem. So having an understanding of the frequency, the nature, and the extent of violence in public transportation helps us to understand who to target, what to do, and to measure the effectiveness of any interventions. For example, it should be really easy for people to report incidents and problems on the public transportation network so that transportation providers have a better understanding of what is happening. So for example, creating systems where passengers can easily report problems through apps or phone lines is a way to make the problem more apparent or more measurable for the respective transport providers, and will also help tackle underreporting. Prevention is all about trying to stop the violence from happening at all. And so it's really important to try and do this as well as possible. There are a lot of different things that you can do around prevention, including campaigns, including infrastructure changes. One of the focuses that we found during our research around sensitivity campaigns is that it's really important to also not just focus on potential perpetrators, but also on, for example, bystanders, so that anyone else in public transportation can feel compelled to stand up or help out or try and distract people from committing any kind of act that is not good on public transportation. So these are a couple of different ways that you can go about this with a focus on also responsibilizing other people in transportation. Protection is all about trying to help people and prevent people from acting, or if something happens, intervening as swiftly and effectively as possible. For example, what we found is that the most effective way to improve a sense of safety on public transportation is to have physically people present, so employees, safety workers, present in the system. But if that it isn't possible everywhere and every time, then having visible ways of contacting the operator to signal any kind of issue is really important through, for example, these kind of totems or call points, hotlines that are very visible and accessible. Prosecution then is about making sure that if something has happened, that the perpetrator is prosecuted swiftly and effectively. one of the ways that prosecution can be made more effective is by providing ways to make collection of evidence easier. So CCTV cameras are really important, have been around for a while already. Recently, there's a lot of conversation about body cameras, also some controversy around it. But some research has found that this can help also with de-escalating and preventing violence from further escalating. So prosecution really means about that it should be important to have really swift and effective repercussion. Then provision of services. It's important that those who are victims on the public transportation system or who are bystanders or witnesses of something that happened can receive any kind of services that will help them either with psychological trauma or with any kind of administrative or judicial processes that they need to go through in order to deal with what happened. So public transportation providers have a responsibility to help these people navigate or to set something up where partners can intervene and help people out. This is not only important for any victims, passenger victims, but also, for example, employees of the transportation system. Then partnerships, really important one, and something that you will hear from our other two speakers. Partnerships is all about talking to the right people and working with the right people to get other viewpoints, other perspectives, help and assistance from organizations who are specialized in these kind of topics. For example, gender awareness trainings, any kind of trainings that will help these organizations to become more aware of the problems, to co-design interventions and solutions together. And it's something that, in this case, this example I'm showing here, for example, Saga can talk more about how they're doing this in Barcelona. Last but not least, policies. They're the underlying framework for all of this. So putting all of this in harder legislation and policies will help public transport organizations, governments, police, any judicial systems to work together effectively and to formalize any systems where, for example, an exchange of data is needed or an exchange of collaboration and partnerships is needed. So it's really important that these things get translated into law and policies as well. This example here is one where UITP, International Transport Body, works together with an organization for employers and employees to improve safety on the work floor. So these are just a couple of examples very briefly on what we can do on a holistic and integrated level to improve safety in our public transportation system. It's really just a quick overview of some of the things and non-exhaustive. So if you're interested in this, you can definitely go and read up our fact sheet, which you can find on acting.eu/recommendations. And that's where I will leave this now, and we will go to our speakers. So let me quickly stop here.
Thank you so much, Arne, for walking us through the key findings and the recommendations of the fact sheet. So it's now our pleasure to introduce one of our two guest speakers that will share her perspective on how to address violence in public transportation based on her extensive experience in the field. So first, I'd like to welcome Sara Ortiz Escalante, who is an urban planner and feminist researcher at Collective Point 6, a Barcelona-based cooperative focused on feminist urbanism and everyday life. So Sara has worked for many years on issues related to gender, mobility, and safety in public spaces. Her research and activism have contributed significantly to shaping how cities can be reimagined from a feminist and inclusive perspective. So Sara, we're delighted to have you with us today. Would you like to share your screen?
Yes.
The floor is yours.
Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for inviting me to be here today. So as Basia was explaining, are part of a collective, which is a Collective 6, which is a cooperative, a nonprofit cooperative of architects, sociologists, and urban planners based in Barcelona, Spain, but we have national and international experience, mostly in Latin America and in the region of the Mediterranean. We've been working in how to integrate a intersectional feminist perspective in urban planning, architecture, and mobility since 2005. So this year we become 20 years old as a collective, and we have been able to develop more than 500 projects in more than 130 cities and towns, and we have worked with lots and lots of people, women, men, and non-binary people. But in related with safety issues, oftentimes we work mostly with women. In over these 20 years, we have working with more than 10,000 women and gender minorities through community participation. That is one of the goals of also to integrate this perspective in urban planning projects. So we work in different areas, and one of the areas of specialization at work that we do is mobility. So it's what I'm going to be focusing today. Just to give a little bit also of a background, we always like to explain from where are we working, okay? So in terms also of mobility. So what we do, as we have a lot of researchers and practitioners working from this gender and feminist perspective have done since the 1970s, is to try to change the way that mobility policies have been developed and planned, and try also to change the androcentric model of mobility policies that we still have today in many cities and in many regions. It's an androcentric mobility model that has been based on the patterns of a standard citizen that usually is related with a white middle-class man with all his abilities, who move from home to work on a car. And that has ignored also the women sustainable mobility patterns that could be example also for mobility sustainable patterns, and the needs, of course, of more than 51% of the population who are women, as well as people of color with disabilities, the LGBTQ community, and other non-adult and productive people. So from this criticism, what we do is to integrate this feminist perspective in mobility to guarantee that we do analysis and policies that respond in a complex and an integral way to everyday life mobility that goes beyond commuting to work and study, and that includes mobility for care. Also in that, we work a lot on integrating a safety perspective from a feminist perspective in mobility, addressing gender-based violence and differentiated perceptions of safety according to gender and other identity variables. And the third objective of our work is to move towards gender equity and increasing also women's participation in the entire mobility cycle, above all through increasing how we can increase the number of women that work in the sector that is pretty high, male-dominated in Europe and around the world, and women represent a minority as working as a professionals, but also how to integrate a feminist perspective through the active participation of women in their communities, of women as users, since we are the main experts of sustainable mobility. So what I'm going to be presenting is, I'm going to be focused on safety and gender-based violence responses in mobility and public transport systems. But as you are going to see, we are advocates of how to use that above all, gathering the experience and the practice and the expertise that women and gender minorities have because they are the main users of sustainable mobility modes and also of public transportation. So with this passion to collect qualitative and participatory data, we, of course, advocate to integrate a feminist perspective in quantitative data collection, because still we have a lot of data sets that don't have either gender segregated data or other types of identity data. But also we have advocated to integrate and to increase the amount of information that we have in terms of qualitative data. That also it's essential to have a complete picture of how are mobility patterns in cities and regions, but also because it's essential to complete this picture at different scales of planning. Oftentimes, quantitative data give us like information about a particular scale with a particular sample, but doesn't give information about a smaller scale, such as how is the mobility in a neighborhood, in a small town, and also in comparison, for example, with a metropolitan area of a region. So with this passion of collecting qualitative methods and data, we have developed several methodological guides on different issues of urban planning, and 3 of them have focused above all on mobility. One is in Spanish, another in Catalan, also to integrate this gender perspective in mobility urban plans at the municipal level. And also we have analyzed this issue of mobility with women night shift workers also at the metropolitan region. And this is in the guide of Nocturnas. So how we do this qualitative and this participatory work? So we use a lot of participatory and qualitative methods that also has a spatial and a territorial and a contextual scale. We use exploratory walks and routes that I'll explain right now, but also we use the different types of mapping methods also to create maps of mobility at the body, individual, and also collective and community level, also to get information about different scales of mobility. So one of the methods that I said that we use a lot also to address issues of safety and gender-based violence in public transportation are safety audits. Safety audits, above all, to analyze mobility infrastructure. So since 2005, Collective Punsis have developed more than 100 exploratory routes. We have done these exploratory routes walking, but also cycling and in public transport. And I'm going to focus above all in the results that we have got from these safety audits in public transport, in metro and bus. And when we use these exploratory walks in safety audits, we also integrate what we have defined and also approved at the provincial level of what are the gender mobility criteria that we have to analyze and to integrate in mobility plans to improve also issues of gender and issues of safety. So we work on 10 criteria that we look at: signposting and wayfinding in mobility systems, vitality, the diversity of people at different times of the day and night, how equipped are the spaces of mobility, if they are visible, if they are informal surveyed, not only by cameras and by police, but informally surveyed by the activities that happen around. We work up if they are accessible, but also if they respond to the mobility of everyday life and care, to safety and autonomy of people. If also responds to the mobility at night and on weekends, on holidays, and how participatory and equitable are these mobility systems. So just to complete what Arne has said, we have already some quantitative data that came after all the qualitative work that we have already developed. Finally, in 2020, here in the province of Barcelona, the Transport Authority decided to conduct a sexual harassment survey that already showed that 57% of women's users of public transport have lived some type of harassment in the last 2 years of use of public transport. Above all, in the sense of comments and words, and also invasion of spaces. But also when we look at young women, we see that more than 90% of young women between 16 and 25 have experienced sexual harassment in public transport, mostly by adult men who travel alone. So with this in mind, this completed already some of the work that we have done with several operators, public transportation operators in Barcelona. We have done several studies, safety audits, but also gender mobility studies in the metro, the bus system, the railway compound system. And also we have contributed to more recent studies, quantitative studies of sexual harassment in public transport that has had also like an European impact. So one of the tools that we have done is to analyze in group with women users, women in their diversity, how is their experience of traveling by bus, by train, by public transport, and analyzing the different scales. Not only how is the public transport from inside, how is a bus, or how, but also how is the bus stop, how is the train station, and also very important, how we arrive there and how is the experience and the surroundings of this public transportation. So we have done lots of recommendations based on the gender criteria, and we are happy to say that the different public transport companies with whom we have worked, they have started to implement some of these recommendations, improving visibility, for example, and accessibility, which is very important also to see and be seen and have a safer trip. Also, improving the information and the mappings that we can find at different levels of the stations, improving the signage that we can have information signage when finding from the inside of the metro to the outside of the street, complemented at different levels. Also, for example, with the SOS buttons that you were explaining. Also, for example, with the Metropolitan Bus, we have done a program that is already developing that has supported also the implementation and the expansion of the already system that they have in night bus, that is the request and stop service. We recently have published a guide with them, which is a training guide for bus operators to integrate a gender perspective and how to address gender-based violence and other hate crimes while operating bus. We have also accompanied them in creating communication campaigns, but also in improvement the lines, the schedules, the frequency of the routes. That is also a very important element in terms of safety and everyday life mobility, and also, for example, how we design bus stop shelters. These are some of the examples. I'll be happy to discuss more a little bit more, but I just want to close to say that we cannot talk only about public transportation when we talk about safety and mobility. We always have to look at mobility on an intermodal way. So we have also developed this work to analyze also who are the public spaces and through walking mobility. And for example, we have conducted safety audits with women who work in industrial zones that are male dominated, but there are also women that work there and also usually very perceived unsafe, but very hostile in many ways. And also we have done it in terms of cycling mobility. Because, as I said, it's important to think in this intermodal way, how we connect sustainable modes of transport and how we arrive also to public transportation. So I'll be happy to share some of the insights and results of these projects. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for sharing all this insightful presentation, indeed, with data and concrete examples, and this key takeaway of the intermodal way of thinking about public spaces, not only public transportation, but all the other patterns of mobility is very important as well. So I will pass the floor before we pass on to the discussion to our second speaker today, who is Jean Politic, security expert in the European Department of the International Association of Public Transport. So Jean brings a wealth of experience in safety and security strategies for mobility systems across Europe. He works closely with transport operators and authorities on preventing and responding to violence in public spaces, with a particular focus on gender-based safety measures. So Jean, thank you for joining us. I was really last minute, so we thank you really much for your contribution today. Please go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you for having me in this topic and with this expertise in this group. And it was a very good presentation of Sarah, I think. Yes, I think to add, I just this January, I'm seconded from Arriva Public Transport Operator in the Netherlands part-time to the EU UHP department on the topic safety and security. So I'm also still working, let's say, for 50% for Arriva Netherlands as a public transport operator at the moment. Bus and rail, about 4,000 employees at the moment have buses and trains, and working more than 30 years in public transport, and the last 20 years on aggression violence with the team, central, but also in the regions. I will go to the 7 points and put some remarks or from an operator side or what I've seen more wider. I'm also a member of the UATP Security Committee, and first of all, I would like to mention that there is a special working group, Women and Safety, which is led by Nicola Brady of TfL London. Also, UATP is involved, and I think it should be one great value if Ms. Sarah could join that group, because I think she did already some great work. So that's first to know. So, and I know some of the audience is already member of the UATP Security Committee. So there is a special working group, Women and Safety. So I'm in that working group also, and I'm working on as almost 10 years on the topic. I know I'm a male, not a female, having 2 daughters and a wife. I think we, especially men, should be more aware and more doing it on this topic. Secondly, also Sarah addressed is public transport, public space. It is not only public transport; it's also in public space. So. But then you have local government, you have regional governments, and you have national governments. And sometimes we don't know from each other what we're doing. For instance, in the Netherlands, we have contracts with regional governments and not with local governments. And there are some local governments we don't know aware of, and buses and tram stops are mostly from local governments. So that's some notifications from the start. Then the top seven topics I'm running through is, first of all, prevalence. I think quality of data is very important. The incidents which are reported via our staff or our passengers are, every day analyzed by a full-time data analyst, which we have, fortunately. And also we give feedback out to our staff, like weekly, monthly, quarterly reports, and we inform them very detailed. And in every region, there's also a specialist which informs more and better. The data we get from, let's say, sexual incidents, I think it's a big dark number. A lot of people are ashamed or not trying or not willing, depending on different circumstances, to report it. So there is a dark number, I'm almost sure of. So that's, we have to do more. That's our internal data analysis, which we are doing. Then we have surveys from the government. Quarterly is called the Klantbarometer. That's a survey every month, which was this year will start in female and male again. They put it together, though they will exclude it again, because there is also a lot of attention on women and safety in public space, but also in public transport again. So that's a good step. The notification of the numbers they give are, let's say, around 8, and a little bit lower on stops and tram stops. So, but we cannot divide it in women and men. So that's also a good step. But I think we need more information, like I've seen in Barcelona, but okay, that area, it's a big city, and the region we are working is more, regional area. It's perhaps harder to point it out. But data analysis is very important. In the Netherlands, all 9 operators use the same specifications. That's interesting. And we do our own data analysis system, but with the police, we built also a national data analysis system. So there is a national data analysis system with facts which are reported by our staff or the passengers. You can operate only, and the police only, and the government, which had the contract, can zoom in. It's built by Arriva and the police, but in 2015 it's given to the government. They own that system, and you can zoom in, and it even has police data. I come on that later. Then the topic prevention, violence before it occurs. They think there is a lot of measures. I come on later what we're doing is, but for instance, CCTV in our buses. We have front cameras, dash cameras, but that's more for traffic aggressions. Also side cameras. The mirrors mostly have now cameras, at least the newest one. Going in the bus and going out the bus, sometimes also some incidents are going on. So that's very important. Our inspectors all have body cameras with audio. By the way, also the CCTV with the bus driver has audio. Why? We lost some court cases due to the violence. With the justice said, well, we cannot prove it, so we have also audio. That's but it's, I know pro country is complex due to privacy and that sort of things. But we more than pleased to tell you more. We invested a lot of it. We had a long pilot phase for bus and rail on that. Then protection, victims, aftercare, information, communication to staff is very important. On the spot, when it happens in the evening or in the night or during the day, that's very important to get the proof to the police and to get a follow-up from the police, but also to inform the bus driver or with heavy events and perhaps also the whole team what's happening and which action we are taking. We even have a pilot now in one region. We have an advocacy unit. We hire, literally, we hire them to stand by our bus drivers or inspectors or train drivers or stewards to if it goes to court case, which has, I think, a very good results for now. The next one is prosecution. With the data, which I mentioned, and with the data of police, we do also scientific investigation with the University of Amsterdam Criminology. There is an overlap of perpetrator groups. I think all persons who are in there are knowing that. But how to staple that facts, because they rob a bike, they go to a supermarket, bad things, but also they certainly pay no tickets or do heavy things in public transport. We did that 3 times already with the university and the police of the east of region or rail. We did it, and we found out that 50% is overlap. And we found out that they're living next to a train station. We found out that 20% are young people, 80% men, 20% female. But what we're doing with this? Now, we did the first, when we had this role, we have a rail ban in regional train. So if you paid 4 times no ticket or you do direct aggression and violence, you get immediately a rail ban for 4 weeks. And that's an agreement with justice and with police. So that's, but for bus, I think it's far more difficult. We've seen some examples of that. That's an example of what we do with the data and the 2 procurements. Then we have in provision of service, improve the speed and quality of aftercare. It's very important to go, if an incident at the night happened, that there comes immediately one staff member to the phase, and to get the CCTV immediately to the police, and they do something with it and keep it posted. So this is we invested in a lot of other things, and we think we believe that this helps a lot also. There was a national program in the Netherlands and it's still working. If a public transport incident go to court case, they get twice as much high courts, go to jail or other sentences. And with a body cam also, we have examples that we could use the CCTV footage of the body cam, and the person who did it did not get 3-week jail, but after that the judge saw it, they get 3 months jail. So that helps a lot also to make it use it. Due to that's roughly what I'm looking at, all those points. I want also to address there is no structurally investigation and education independent to aggression and violence in public transport. So there is no bachelor or master thesis on public transport aggression and violence. I don't see them. So every time every time after a very big incident, we're starting again. Who has the knowledge and expertise about it? I would like to address it, and be aware also in the EU, Mrs. Ruth Lopien, she's equality coordinator of the European Commission, and we have contact with her, and I think she also is willing to know this outcome. I will sure I have contact with her on behalf of the new function I have. So that's that's also, I think, good to mention, for perhaps for a follow-up in the future. Also, a solution which helps for a part is the WhatsApp text service, which Dutch Railways started 3-4 years ago. They started for Dutch Railways, so you can text them if you don't feel safe. So it's for, let's say, minor incidents. It did perhaps not solve all cases. It's a copy of the UK Rail and London subway. They do it also. What I think is missing is only Dutch Railway. And now the Dutch government asked all 9 operators to make a follow-up. And there are 3 pilots, pilot bus going in Brabant, pilot rail in the east, and pilot in the city of Amsterdam with different modes to see if you can make a national tech service. And by the way, the local government has also something similar, but we don't talk with each other. So that's a little bit strange. That's about the 7 Ps. Within Ariba, I would like to address 5 things. We invest a lot. So we invest a lot in management and operation on quality, what is and data analyze. So we have a full-time data analyst. So and invest about the knowledge, what is aggression and violence, how to cope it. So we invest a lot, not only central, but also in the region. We invest in education and training of bus drivers, train drivers, and stewards and inspectors. So they get a lot of training. We invest a lot in technical things, so front cameras, body cams, audio, that's still going on. Partnership, that's also one of the things. Yeah, you need a partnership. So we have 5 agreements with 5 police regions. The other 5 we don't have, but the 5 regions we have an operational, tactical, and strategical point of contact, and it's very valuable. Both sides are working. And research and development, like I told you, the university investigation we did with criminology, which proved the overlap of perpetrator groups. I'm willing to share the last master from 2 years ago. It's in English, I have it in German, we have it in Dutch. We should do it more structurally and not only by Ariba. We should do it more from governmental side, I think. We think, sorry. So that's roughly it. I think due to time and that sort of things, perhaps a lot of topics, but we are there. I'm there to answer questions if there are. So thank you for this time and willing to support it, of course. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah and Jan, for your thoughtful and very inspiring interventions, I would say. Before we move on to the short Q&A sessions, I haven't seen any chat questions yet. I will pass the floor to Arne.
Yep. All right. Thank you. So I have been writing down a couple of questions for both Sarah and Jan. Maybe picking in on the last thing that you said, Jan, and it's also coming back to Sarah. You've been talking about education and training. Sarah, I know that Punces also does education and training with the regional and local governments in Barcelona and around. Maybe something that you didn't really mention. Like, can you talk a little bit about how you've been working with governments to like help them understand more and like what the impact was of that work?
Yeah, one of the things that we have done all over these years is to do capacity building and training on both urban planning and also mobility from a gender perspective at the municipal level, but also at the provincial and more like regional level. Usually it's not with politicians, with governments, it's with like the staff and the technicians, which is important too. I think that a lot of the work that we have developed, one of the learnings that we have done is that it's very important to create like an alliance and network with the people who is in the public administration working to implement those changes. So for us, it's been very important to work hand by hand on these trainings and capacity building with these technicians, because at the end, our trainings are very practical oriented. Of course, we have like a part which is theoretical and to share concepts, but usually we try to work and apply these concepts and these gender criteria and this analysis in projects that they are actually developing, right? And we have done that also when we have worked in terms of mobility, and that is very useful in the sense that when you are looking from another lens, the work that you are doing in practice, you can definitely engage more with these issues and with these topics. So besides all the education and the capacity building, I would say that also the projects that I presented, some of the projects that I presented that we have done directly with public transportation operators, that the coordination and the revision of the project per se with the people on the staff and the team that we have worked has been also like a very educational and training part in the sense, and mutual in the sense that it's been very important to have a good coordination with these people to also to ensure that there is a commitment not to do like gender washing, or to also understand in a different way what safety means for women and gender minorities, but also to engage in how to find solutions that really respond to the context and that really are appropriate to the situation. So that's been very, very important and very useful. And I think it's important to link both things, because oftentimes there are public transportation institutions that contact us to do like an audit or like a project or a study, but they don't have the training. They have not had the possibility to do some training in feminist and gender perspective in these topics, and I think it's essential. So when we talk about how to change and how to really transform mobility to integrate this perspective, beyond trying to do it in practice, we have to do it first, like capacity building with people, because also issues of feminism and gender, as well as sustainability, these are these words that have been co-opted by the system, and that a lot of people think that can talk about that, or they know about gender and feminism, right? But it's really also a specialization in a topic and a view and a perspective that needs also to be learned from what other people have done before and applied in practice, in order to say that you are really integrating this perspective. And I'll leave it there.
Cool. Thank you. I think with this whole topic, which is, is really complex, people don't necessarily know where to start or where to go about. One way of going about, like, instead of trying to find solutions, it's interesting to also think about like the things that don't work. So I think there's a question both to you, Sarah, and to Jan, and maybe Jan, I'll start with you. Are there learnings that you've had over the past, years and decades of your experience, things that people maybe automatically come to as a solution, but actually doesn't work? Like, what are the things that are more of a crux or something that like we should actually stop doing? Do you have any kind of examples of that?
Yeah. One example is rail stations. So we are a rail operator, a small rail operator, 170 train sets, but we have 400, almost 400 train stations, and about 250 are from the Dutch railways, or they're driving there. But on the regional train, there is when we are already responsible for in the vehicle. But the infrastructure company is responsible for aggression and violence on the station, and they give it, let's say, subcontracted to double wise VNS. So that's very complex. We almost see no one, and that's just, we need support. And we have found one solution, an idea by the operation itself, is called bike security. It's in Groningen and in Leeuwarden in the north, and that's a safety person with a mountain bike. We only allow to use when there's no rush, but for very heavy things. But they only use it for protecting them, by the way, once a month. And when they leave trains or coming in trains, and if their trains are not there, they do rounds. And we see, especially lover boys and that sort of things, they helped a lot. So that could be a solution. On other stations, we use regional safety company because they have other expertise and knowledge. So that's, but you're asking what's not work. So we also asked to the national infrastructure, especially in the small station. Come on, we need support there, different support. It doesn't work, so a local solution could help also. And who is responsible where? The national government is responsible for the aggression and violence in totally, but they seconded it to the province, and they seconded it to the operator. That makes it very complex, and everyone is pointing to one. So that's not. So that's some cases I hope you would like to hear.
Yeah. Saga, what about you? Like, what are things that you found that people come back to as they think is a solution, but actually doesn't work?
Yeah, okay, let me frame it. So we really have to be critical in how we address issues of gender-based violence and safety to avoid and not re-victimize people who live gender-based violence also in public transportation. So through the work that we have done, the participatory that we have done with women's users of public transport, we have got a lot of learnings coming from that. I think that there has been also like an approach to safety, and this is going to be very controversial because a lot of money goes to that. But there is a lot of the approach to safety that the importance is to, on one hand, have a lot of like digital surveillance to cameras or to formal bodies of security, such as police or security guards in the public transportation. And then also like a focus in that the goal is that we report gender-based violence, right? That we report, we do like a legal report, or we go to the police to report. But decades of work with women who have lived gender-based violence in different contexts, in different spaces, not only in public transport, and also the participatory work that we have done with women show us that these are not the best answers, and not and that oftentimes are not the ones that women users appreciate, right? So I just share a report that we have. We did the field work of a study that was paid by the European Investment Bank, where we did a study in the TMB system of Barcelona, the metro and the bus. And here also there are some of the recommendations and solutions that repeatedly women says that cameras don't give us them more safety, and also that they criticize a lot police and above all security guards systems of security, because they are not trained in how to address issues of gender-based violence, but also other types of hate crimes, and they have encountered that they re-victimize and also they replicate and reproduce also violence when women go to report or women go to ask for help. So they repeatedly talk about other types of systems that can improve the safety. For that reason, it's very important that also in the terms of public transport, and also with the new, all these things of new technologies and AI, that for me it's like a threat, there is like a vision also to reduce maximum the personnel on the stations, for example. And women on these studies show that and say that it's very important to find a person, a worker who works there, who works there, and that they can give like a response. And of course that this person has to be trained and has to have like a sensibility and training about how to address these issues also when they are working, right? And that's why also women in general in many transport systems, they value more a bus system where they can speak to the driver, or the driver can accompany them, than to a metro system that oftentimes in Barcelona, for example, new metro lines are totally automatic. There is no persons in any scale of the station to report anything. So for example, persons who are trained, who are giving eyes to the space, is something that repeatedly appears, right? And other things that you have say, I think that one of the things that we have that we have learned at different levels, not as an organization, but also with the public institution that we have worked, is that there are a lot of public programs that are happening already, but oftentimes users don't have any idea about what is happening. So let's go back to the example of cameras. I don't say, for example, I think that how you have exposed cameras is a good way. That is a way also to later on document the situation, but not as a prevention, right? But for example, in the public transportation systems, in many ways there are cameras, but people don't know why they are there and for what's the use, right? And when you talk with the people who work in the system, they say, oh yes, cameras, they are there because when you push the SOS button, they activate it and they can react. And we say always, okay, then you have to make visible this information. You have to explain it, because then maybe they won't be so much resistant to cameras, and people will understand better what tools, what information is there, right? So I think one of the things that we have to kind of like improve is how we disseminate and make visible all the programs, all the information that is out there, and that all the things that the different public operators are already working on, because there are many things that are doing. And when you do an improvement, also to explain it, make it visible. Okay, we have changed the bus shelters, we have made it more visible, improved the sitting area, they have light, they have, so also explain that. To make sure that everybody in the chain of using of the public transport know also about all the programs that are there. So, and many more, but just to start with that.
For sure. I do want to give a bit of time to the Q&A because I see some questions are coming in, but I do want to give a quick response to Jan because I saw you think, and there's a claim here about cameras. So cameras can help with prosecution is what I understand from Saga's claim, but they do not make women feel safer necessarily. Like how do you respond to that?
I'm not a woman, but we think it's partly preventive. I think also the Barcelona police, by the way, I know also the operator Ricardo Ortega from BNT, and know rather well. Then they have some specifications, so you have to have real good footage. So no, we use it. Partly it prevents, in my opinion. Partly, not all. If you're really drunk or if you really got a lunatic, then he or she doesn't has in mind that it happened, or he or she get triggered, then still will. But partly it helps, not all. Yeah, it's a complete set of information you have, and de-escalating, especially to our staff, is very important. Have eyes and ears. Yeah, totally agree. Not only in Barcelona, which is a very big city. I've been a lot, I think 7-8 times, but in a rural area like Mechelen or smaller cities. I was sleeping in Mechelen last night. To be aware also, that's bus stops and that's train station. That's difficult. But I was very happy with the things she showed, because especially I saw young women helping for solutions, and I will come back to her separate from this meeting for sure. That's for sure. So thank you for that.
All right. Thank you both. We would still have some time for the Q&A, so I will have Vasya to moderate the Q&A. So thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Arne. I see there are a lot of questions. Actually, I hope that we will be able to touch upon this. So I will start with the first question, which is addressed to Sarah. So in acting case studies, it was clear that while well-designed participatory processes can get to involve a relatively large number of diverse people, it is more challenging to reach those who are exposed to more severe conditions of vulnerability or marginalization, and their perspectives, needs, and knowledge. So considering your amazing work and experience, what would be your recommendations for broader inclusion?
Thank you, Marina. I think we were discussing this in previous meetings. So yeah, we are very critical also about how you design the participatory processes and to collect qualitative contextual data at different scales, because of course, in I don't know how are in other contexts in Europe, but in Spain it's mandatory to conduct participatory process for particular plan elements, like for example, like a master plan of a city or urban plan of a city. But oftentimes this participatory legal, which is mandatory, goes to the phase of allegations, when you have the plan and you ask people to have a public meeting to say if they agree or not agree. So we are critical about how we ask people to participate, and it's very important to do it also in the phase of assessment, the analysis, when we are gathering information, right? And here, what I would say is also to apply this intersectional feminist perspective in how you are thinking, how to reach and communicate and disseminate this participation to make sure that as much diverse people can participate in this process. And I think this is going to link with this next session, next question that someone posed too. So on one hand, we dedicate a lot of time, and I think it's very important to dedicate a lot of time also to make sure that we arrive to as much diverse group of people possible. So, for example, when we do exploratory walks, it's like a walk that maximum we participate 15 or 20 people to address a lot of issues in a 2-hour walk, right? So instead of like doing an open call that we do it, we also like contact with particular groups in that community, in that area, that can bring also diversity to the group. And for us, it's very important there is diversity of age. There are young women that participate, but also more like elder women, people with disabilities, who we reach them, people with different race backgrounds or ethnicity, and also that have different migrant status. We do things with children too, right? And also to arrive to as much diverse group of people. And for example, with the study that we did with TMB for the European Investment Bank, that's what we did. We tried to have like a very diverse sample to reach as much people as possible, thinking already that those who use public transport in our context usually are also like people with low income and working class, right? That's the reality. It's not only the reality in North America, but it's also here in Europe. So when we reach that diverse group of people, you reach also a lot of the unrepresented people who are not present, oftentimes in the tables of discussion when we are talking about public policies on mobility. So that in the terms of communication, dissemination, and reaching out to people to participate, but also we emphasize a lot what type of tools we use. And things that are very, I think that you learn with practice, right? That how you apply these methods, that these are methods that are create like listening, empathy, also in the way that we, for example, try not to mix in these qualitative activities or participatory activities. When we talk about safety, we don't mix genders, in the sense that we create a space for women to talk about issues of safety and violence, because we are the affected by that. And then, for example, we don't recommend that the technicians or the politicians come to that, because oftentimes they want to come because they want to learn, but our experience is that when there has been a member of the staff that come, usually don't take this listening position. Sometimes they take as an attack, for example, a comment about a certain space that women are analyzing, right? So it's important to create a safe space where people can explain their experience, and us as facilitators have an active listening and gathering of this information. But also one more part, also to reach and to include all this information, is that people who are facilitating process also are trained in how to address gender-based violence issues, because all this qualitative gathering might trigger a lot of situations too, right? That people open and explain situations, and you have to have information about how to accompany that person, or give phones or reference for someone who might need, like later on, accompaniment and support after this activity. I don't know if Marina has responded. So maybe to respond to the next question, how we also involve women in shaping their safety initiatives. I think that through the work that we do, and also using kind of these methods that are very spatial located, and talk also about the impact of this violence in our bodies when we move. What we have found is that we also escape from a revictimization view. What we don't do is, for example, to do maps of these points that we avoid because we feel unsafe. we take them, we analyze them, but the objective is not to have a map of these fear points. The objective is to analyze these fear points and see with a group of women how we can change them to appropriate them. So we don't want to limit mobility of women. We want to expand our right to move day and night at any time, and alone or with other people, right? So part of these methods also give us individual and collective agency to reappropriate some of these spaces, right? And to share. These are also spaces where, or methods that we share some of the strategies also to improve safety or the perception of safety. And oftentimes we say that, for example, exploratory walks or these group activities is not only a data gathering method, is also like a tool that allow women to get in contact with each other, women that might be neighbors and part of the same community. And also it's a space of awareness raising, and is a space of collective activism and action to engage in ways of how to change the situation. And we have several examples of that also that has like a it's an important part of how to make also women as active agents of change when, for example, they are traveling in public transport.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for covering also both the questions that were posted in the chat box. So if you can post further information and links, we'll make sure to pass them on to all that people that have registered. So we have like limited time. So I will go now to the question which is addressed to Jan, which is, what are the reasons to invest in gathering more quantitative data, knowing already that most women have experienced harassment and feelings of unsafety on public transport, but will not report every incident?
The reason why we're gathering those data analyzed and also from competitors is because if we, the example I've seen in 2008 in Liverpool, is that two operators in Liverpool had a lot of incidents, and there was smashed windows, more than 50, 100 even per month. And so some drivers didn't dare to drive in the region. And then they had a meeting with police and government, and then they came out that they have in the same area the same incidents. They didn't know from each other. So the reason why we have those centralized data, and we can look in our competitors if they have also incidents, and join forces, and also join forces with the police. Your question about lack of data of ladies, women who get reports, how to improve that? It's political. It's also combined. So the WhatsApp text service seems to help for a part, I think. I believe a lot into the examples I didn't use until today, which Sarah addressed, to go with walks into cities, not only the big city of Amsterdam, Rotterdam, and The Hague in the Netherlands, as an example, but also the smaller cities, and use those walks to improve it. Even my wife dares not to go to Groningen in the north at evening, and it's a bus station, because she doesn't feel safe. Mostly backwards. I think urban planning can help a lot. We have also light some other sensitive things to use. But we're testing the text service, SMS service, in a train line in the east, and in a bus line with Transdev and Arriva in Brabant. I'm curious. I agree also as a bus driver. If you have a bus driver, the person mostly goes to the driver. But there are also situations, young ladies with a crowded bus has no time and doesn't dare to do that. So I think we should do more joint communication plans, all operators, with government. I think also the government, I know 3 governments of the Netherlands is investigating it more to do especially survey how improve it. So it has its intention, but I think also there is they call it the street intimidation app from the local government. We did not knew we had a topic. It is also covering a different ministry. So there's a lot of work to do, I think. I think the idea of Barcelona could help, but we're very open to make more solutions, and I think we should do more, far more than we do now, seeing the results of your investigation also.
And Jan, a last question before we, which is also,
sorry. Can I add one more thing to Jan? I think it's very important to continue gathering quantitative data, even we know the problem, right? Because data also is like a picture of a particular moment. So the thing is, right? So I think it's important to continue making visible what happens. Maybe what we have to do is like expanding the types of data that we use and how we gather this quantitative data and how we complement it with qualitative data, as I say. But I think it's important also because it's the only way also to monitor how the evolution also of the solutions that we propose, if they work or not, for example, to do monitoring and evaluation. And for example, in Spain, we are currently working with the Minister of Transport to create a guide of how to integrate a gender perspective in data collection in all the data sets, statistics that the minister gathered in terms of mobility. Because oftentimes it's not only, it is that we have to integrate like the gender variable and other variables, but also how we analyze this data, what questions we pose, how we expand also the quantitative data with qualitative data and things like that. So I think it's very important to continue documenting all these issues in order to advance in the right responses also that are effective. Sorry, I just wanted to...
No, we really do. But I think a mix of both could help also. But okay, the last question of the other questions from the audience.
It's one last question. Thank you so much for highlighting the need for prevalence and understanding better. So this is also addressed to Jan. So what are the reasons to invest in gathering more? Oh, sorry, no, that's not the question. It's, could you explain a bit more about the text alarm system? Is there 24/7 a possibility to dispatch security personnel to the vehicle where the incident is happening? And what is the follow-up given to a text alert that is sent?
Yeah, very good question. It started with the text service which NS gives, and NS has on every train set, they have 2 inspectors, so that's the benefit, I think, and they give a text follow-up. So they have a special OCC for texting backwards, and that helps a lot. So I see a person who's drunk and he's snoring, or I'm feeling not safe, for instance, but sometimes you need a physical follow-up. They can give it better. We're investigating in bus in the regions, far more difficult. Regional train is far more difficult. That's why we're investigating it also. I know from Montreal, bus and subway just started the same. Zakaria, he's in charge of that. And so the idea is to get, and it's 24/7 also. So that was also a question. So it's 24/7. The most companies have already a web care, I think from 6 until 11, but this is 24/7, giving text back, but also giving physical help is difficult. It's also not meant for really super heavy things, because then you call 911 or 112 in the Netherlands. So that's partly the answer, but we're investigating, and I'm also in a national committee with the government to guide it also. So if the person wants to know more, can come to me separately if wanted. Let's hope it answers a little bit.
Thank you so much. We're running short in time, so I would like to thank you so much for joining us today for this very important discussion on how we can work toward safer, more inclusive mobility systems. So a warm thank you to our speakers, Jan and Sarah, for your contributions, and also to Arne for the insightful talk about the ACCTING Factsheet. As mentioned earlier, a recording of today's session will be made available on the ACCTING YouTube channel, so feel free to revisit the discussion. We'll make sure to share all the resources with you via email. And before we wrap up, I'd like to invite you to join our upcoming acting webinars. I have posted 2 upcoming ones for May, and more will come up later because May will be a very busy month for us. So feel free to join us. We will be very welcoming you there as well. So thank you again. Have a lovely rest of your day, and we hope to see you again soon in one of our next sessions.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you.